psilocybin, extracted from a variety of Mexican mushroom, mescaline, a chemical taken from the peyote cactus, DMT, synthesized from the compound tryptamine. The word hallucination is defined as an apparent perception, as by sight or hearing, for which there is no real or external cause.
The Webster's Dictionary defines the word psychedelic as of or noting a mental state characterized by a profound sense of intensified sensory perception, sometimes accompanied by severe perceptual distortion and hallucinations, and by extreme feelings of either euphoria or despair. The DEA, also known as the Drug Enforcement Administration, defines psychedelics as substances with no medical use and a high potential for abuse, set as Schedule I drugs. Psychedelics such as LSD, peyote, and psilocybin are scheduled such ways and placed next to drugs such as heroin, methamphetamine, oxycodone, and fentanyl. Taking these descriptions into mind, and to say that these drugs are as dangerous as the US government states they are, then the big question is, why do people use them?
I remember once I wasn't using LSD, it was peyote, which is reasonably similar, and her face distorted into sort of a flesh-dripping monster face. You know, features became drawn and like jowls hung, and she grew fangs, and I quickly turned my head away, and I told myself this couldn't be so.
I think a lot of people think that it's an extreme thing to do because it's so uncommon and demonized by like the government and kind of just by society in general for the past 50 so years. Before I first took psychedelics, I found myself frequently depressed, but after having experienced them a few times, I can still get in these like low periods, but it's a lot easier to get myself out of them.
Psychedelics show promise for treating addiction, OCD, anxiety, and in some cases, depression. One small study of 15 smokers found that 80% were able to abstain from smoking for 6 months after a psilocybin treatment. In a pilot study of 12 advanced cancer patients suffering from end-of-life anxiety, participants who took psilocybin generally showed lower scores on a test of depression. And a smaller study suggested that psilocybin treatment could actually help people with alcohol dependence cut back on their drinking days.
Psychedelics such as LSD, psilocybin, and peyote interact with the serotonin 5-HT2A receptor in your brain. After multiple studies were exercised in the 60s, it was found that this receptor could be responsible for controlling mood, cognitive problem solving, and the perception of reality. Another study conducted by the Beckley Imperial Research Foundation found that the drugs such as LSD actually allow the brain to talk to itself like it couldn't have normally. In this regard, another study found that psychedelics could likely be viable ways of treating mental disorders because of their ability to make new connections in the brain and a possible increase in neuroplasticity. This means that psychedelics could be extremely therapeutic for people with mental disorders.
Do you find it easier to draw this picture or a little more difficult? It's a lot of fun.
Hey, son of a gun! It's refreshment time!
Psychedelics have had such a large impact on American culture ever since the public was able to obtain the substances around the 1950s. This sparked creativity for the artwork of the time period as well as in the time periods that came afterwards. This included advertisements, animations, and films, and it carried over to music too, such as in the music the Beatles produced around in the 1960s. It was very psychedelic and it was very ahead of its time.
At this moment in time, I don't think it's for everyone because there's still such a stigma behind it. But once people can get past that and aren't afraid to expand their consciousness, quote unquote.
Yeah.
I think everybody could benefit from. People should also be educated on them more thoroughly. Um, and if that isn't the direction that our education system wants to take, then I think it should be legal for like exclusively therapeutic uses only.
Psychedelics have always been a mystery because of the bias that has been placed around them by the US government. Despite this, it doesn't matter if it was 50 years ago or if it's the present day. These drugs have been misunderstood and understudied for years. Taking a second look at some laws and being aware of the opportunities these substances make possible is important. Psychedelics are not for everyone. However, the people who struggle, who could benefit from the drugs, need to be considered. In the new progressive age, psychedelics are now seen as less evil in the eyes of the American public. However, there has been very little done by the US government to change this. However, as more people learn about these substances, the more progress is made. For instance, Oregon has recently legalized psilocybin therapy, which gives great stride towards better mental health in America. Still, not that much is still known about psychedelics, but hopefully that will change soon. Because where there's a will, there is a way. Their influence and our culture, and there is nothing a government can do about that.